In the middle of tremendous darkness and personal tragedy, false lights are trying to guide us, and they can bring shipwreck. We must be focused on God's pathways and His light in the storms of life. Christ is the light of navigation. Hello and welcome to the Light of Navigation and this Reflections podcast. My name is Marguerite Lever-Woodall, and I'm an author, speaker, and your host. In these podcasts, I love to explore and contemplate different life issues and their solutions through the lens of God's wisdom and His words. In this 24th episode, called the Jezebel Threats, I'm looking at how we can be drawn away from God's promises and His goodness through the menacing events that life tries to present. It keeps us in a daily fear-filled way of thinking about living. Join me in giving thought on the tough issues of life, and let's discover God's pathways through them. My pastor's words in a Sunday service recently came back to haunt me through a gentle yet firm conviction from God's Spirit. He spoke of Jezebel's verbal threat that was directed at Elijah, the Jewish prophet. In the scriptures, it's stated here. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done. Also how he had executed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So let the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow, about this time." When he saw that, he arose and ran for his life, and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. This is found in 1 Kings 19, verses 1 through 3. The end result of that threat changed the course of Elijah's life and ministry. Jezebel was furious when she learned that he'd executed several hundred prophets of the pagan god Baal. Jezebel was a worshiper of Baal, and these prophets were under her protection and direction. They were her personal priests and had also become the people's spiritual leadership. She had successfully pulled the majority of the country's population away from worshiping God. Jezebel cut quite a figure in her day. As King Ahab's wife, she was known widely for her takeover of the Israelites' culture and for her dedicated pagan worship. She had 450 of those priests attending to this pagan god and its worship, which she introduced to everyone. Her name, even today, is synonymous with control, witchcraft, and an amoral and immoral lifestyle. In short, she was a hussy. Her name has also evolved into the representation of a feminine fatale persona that supposedly has incredible control over men. Jezebel ruled in the relationship with the Jewish king she had married. She wore the pants. My point is this. Jezebel was feared greatly among her compatriots and enemies. She was ruthless, controlling, murderous, and deeply involved in witchcraft, not to mention the political power she wielded. You could say she was known for a far-reaching arm. No wonder her threat shook others to the core. I could go on about how many of us can have some of the same personality issues as Jezebel. You know, the control issues, etc. But that's not what I want to highlight here. I'm looking at the intimidation she wielded. It's the fear she struck in people's hearts around her that I want to address. And especially what it did to Elijah, a tremendous God-led man. In contrast, Elijah's life was full of miraculous encounters with God. Under the Lord's direction, he declared a massive drought to occur for 3 years, and it happened. He called fire down from heaven and was fed more than once by ravens or angelic beings. As God directed him, he lodged with a widow and her son for a season. He watched as God provided the widow with a supernatural, automatic refill of her oil jar and flour bin for quite some time to feed them all. On top of that, when the widow's son died, Elijah called on God to restore him, and he raised him from the dead. Last, and by no means least, Elijah goes back to King Ahab at God's command 3 years later, and after declaring the drought to begin with, announced that it would begin to rain in the region once again. And it did, just after the defeat and the death of the prophets of Baal. When Jezebel threatened Elijah, all bets were off. He ran. He ran for his life. At one point, he came to a broom tree, sat down, and prayed that he might die. Her fearful reputation pressed upon him through her menacing warning and threat. Elijah then continued to travel to a cave in Horeb at Mount Sinai. Once there, God asked him a question. "Why are you here?" Elijah replied, "I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life." That's in 1 Kings 19, verse 10. Elijah had witnessed and experienced God's powerful supernatural provision, protection, and the miraculous time and time again. Yet at Jezebel's single threat, he came undone, ran, and hid. As he sat down, he emotionally lashed out with, "I'm all alone, they're trying to kill me, and I'm done." It was a "just kill me now, God" attitude that took over. An enemy's threats had shifted his focus from the miraculous power of God in his life to feeling forsaken, abandoned, and alone. He failed to match his experiences with his faith or trust in God. I began to realize that I'd allowed life's threats and hardships to shut me down, just like Elijah let Jezebel's threats overwhelm him. This is why my pastor's words that Sunday hit me so hard. He had inadvertently pointed out in his sermon how my perspectives had been gradually shifting over to the threats life can present and the fears it nurses. Life's Jezebel-like threats are about living preoccupied with the fears and the worries of possible or probable events that daily living can drop at our doorstep. It camps on every negative issue and occurrence, ushering in despair, a loss of hope, and undergirds every fear and worry. These issues or threatening circumstances in life feel like they'll never end and take us down, and like Elijah, we feel alone. God's goodness, love, and hope for a better day are forgotten. It can pull us away from the foundational memories of God's impactful movements that we've experienced in our past, the present, and possibly the future. How did all of this culminate with me, you might ask? God brought me to the end of myself recently to shake me loose from my developing negative way of thinking. It happened when I sat in a doctor's office recently for blood testing. My veins are small and difficult to find for most phlebotomists. The lovely doctor's assistant tried so hard, but a second stick was still producing nothing but frustration for her and me. In the past, she had had difficulty before when a draw was needed. This time, I just placed my head in my hand and said nothing. I did not respond to any conversation from that point forward during the appointment. I was done. The physician and assistant were questioning my unusual shift in mood. It wasn't like me. I endured a third painful needle rammed into my arm. Afterward, I walked out to my car, sat on the driver's seat staring out the window, and cried. I cried out to God and said, I'm so tired of getting stuck every so many weeks, tired of medical appointments, tired of struggling financially for needed supplements and doctor's office calls. I'm just tired of it all. In those moments, I was also overwhelmed with thoughts about the reoccurring pain on the left side of my chest. It was from the radiation treatments for cancer 7 years previously. The radiation had melted my ribcage muscles. It does that. Now I'm left with periodic muscle spasms that are off the charts and very painful. Lymph node damage has disrupted the drainage pathways toxins are supposed to flow through. As a result, edema has become a periodic issue. Then there are the digestive problems and the long-running battle to overcome them. I felt like I'm getting nowhere. Several upper endoscopy and colonoscopy procedures over the years are really wearing thin with me. Right down to my toes, I'm done. Literally, on the bottom of my feet are 2 different small but painful calloused areas that are annoying the snot out of me daily when I walk. Minor, I know, but just aggravating. I'm being real here. There's been a constant undercurrent mentally and emotionally in my life where I've been wrapped up in the worry over all these physical issues plaguing me the last couple of years. Every moment mentally seems to be consumed with a focus on how much my body is betraying me. I just want to go through life without health complications and not experience any pain or debilitating ongoing illness, don't you? Well, that's just not how life works for most of us. When I went home that day from the doctor's appointment, I came to a standstill spiritually and emotionally. There I was, sitting on the edge of my bed, silent. For the first time in my life, I couldn't pray or speak to God. I didn't want to. The upheaval and the worry about physical and financial issues and dwelling on them had overcome me. On the inside, I said, just let me die suddenly and peacefully in my sleep when my time comes, God. Sound familiar? I'm tired of battling life's daily threats. I was angry and tired of struggling and wrestling with every physical and financial issue in my life. I retreated to bed and slept for a long time. Remember, Elijah came to that place too when he was threatened by Jezebel. In 1 Kings 19 verse 4 it says, "And he prayed that he might die, and said, 'It is enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers.'" Well, this was my Jezebel moment. Like Elijah, I had shut down on the inside, sat down, and just didn't care about anything anymore. Even communicating with God. I didn't want to talk to him. I felt no hope, no love, no joy, no laughter, nothing. All forward momentum for me spiritually in life came to an absolute standstill. This was a first. I'd never experienced it before. It was different. It didn't feel like depression. It was more like I'm done with all of this moment. The standstill lasted for 2 weeks. In the pastor's sermon that followed at the end of those 2 weeks that I had mentioned before, God gently unfolded an overall view of what I was going through, and he further elaborated on it the following day. The threats of physical hardship and premature physical death overtook my focus in daily living, not to mention the financial difficulties as well. The Jezebel-like threats in life had overtaken me, and I wanted to run, so I shut down. Like Elijah, I had forgotten about my experiences of God's miraculous moves in my life and his goodness, his faithfulness and provision that he'd never failed to bring all along. Here I was, consumed with fear and worry about my physical and financial hardships, and I had forgotten to match my experiences with my faith. We all encounter the fear that comes with life's Jezebel-like threats. David knew how to do life without a fear-filled focus. Just before a big battle, or in the middle of a tough hardship, he encouraged himself in the Lord. He deliberately recounted verbally, out loud, all the many events in his life where God had stepped in to direct, deliver, or correct him. He was matching his experiences with his faith. As I sat there, I asked God to forgive me for being so short-sighted about everything. I repented of the self-pity and, more importantly, the horrible audacity to so quickly forget all that God has done for me. Then, like David, I recounted out loud all the incredible healing and miraculous moves of God that has occurred in my life. I saw so clearly in those moments why the Israelites in the wilderness angered God so greatly. They were constantly threatened by life's sudden turn of events. And then they immediately blamed God and promptly forgot everything that he'd previously done for them. They kept failing to match their experience with their faith. They were discharged from entering the promised land because of it. They never made it. Elijah was decommissioned in his ministry after he ran from Jezebel and her threat. The recognition or revelation came that I had come close to being decommissioned in ministry myself as well. The fear of the Lord swept over me with that recognition too. It was sobering. Life will inevitably shake its fist at you with all its threats, just like Jezebel did with Elijah. It will say to you, "You'll never make it. You'll lose everything you have. I'm going to destroy you and your family. You're all alone. I'll take your kids. You'll die before your time." And the threats go on and on. I want to live with the joyful recall daily of every good thing God has given and done for me in my journey. Most often, I live daily with an excitement that anticipates wonderful things and the discovery of what God is going to do next in my life. I don't want to be drawn into living life feeling threatened by current difficulties or the possibility of one hardship or another coming, and continuously running to get away from it. You'd be surprised how much we run in life. We all do it. Are you a runner? Have you forgotten the goodness of God? Thank you for taking time to listen today. If this podcast encourages someone you know, who's struggling with the obstacles life presents. Please share it with them. This episode of the Jezebel Threats is a two-part podcast. The second installment, called The Jezebel Life, is coming up next in Reflections. In it, we're going to explore the more sinister side of living a Jezebel-like lifestyle.